Okay, Car Mania. This is my GT3 class. Got the Acura, the Aston Martin, the Audi, the Bentley, the BMW, the Corvette, the Viper, the Ferrari, the Ford GT, the Jaguar, the Lambo, the Lexus, the Maserati, the McLaren, the Mercedes, the Nissan, and the Porsche. Okay, and here is my NSR Formula 86, 89 grid. You got the McLarens, the Williams, the Lotus, the Ferrari, the John Player Lotus, the Jordans, the Lolas, Eurobrun, and a Leighton House March. And you have the LaRousse. You have the Copper Cigar for the Fittipaldis. You have the Alfa Romeos with the Benetton sponsorship. You have the Fond Metals, and then you have the Scuderia Italias. And then also is the 25th anniversary NSR. There's a couple that I didn't get yet. I am missing the Olivetti Brabhams, and they're seeming to be very hard to get. So I'm going to be doing my own using white test cars and paint and decals from Pato's Place. And then there's also two more that are on pre-order that haven't been released yet, which are the Williams cars, one of which was the Damon Hill car. And I'm not sure on the release dates of those, but that's the grid of these that I have so far. Okay, and these are my high nose Formula One cars. Got the two McLarens of David and Mika, and the Arrows. A couple of Williams and a Renault. All right, and this is my A1 GP grid. The team Canada, Australia, France, Germany. You got Great Britain, Italy. You got the Netherlands, New Zealand, Switzerland, and the United States. It's a shame that they never did do the rest of the nations to make this a complete set. This is, to my knowledge, all the cars that were ever produced. I think there's 10 different nations that were done. There were many more nations that actually participated in the A1 GP during the years that they ran it. I thought it was a pretty interesting concept. It's a shame it didn't pursue or didn't go any farther. But it didn't, and this is what's left to commemorate it. So these are the 10 cars. These are some of the first cars that I got when I started getting into the slots. I started out with a basic Scalextric set of the Parnelli Jones 1970 school bus yellow Mustang and the Mark Donahue 69 Sunoco Camaro. And from there, it's turned into a life of its own, and probably some would say an obsession on the border of compulsiveness with what I've collected. Probably part of my personality, probably OCD if I was diagnosed. But at least it's a healthy hobby. Maybe not healthy for the bank account, but it's at least it isn't polluting my body in any way. And I've got an understanding wife, so that goes a long way. In fact, she was the one that bought me the first Scalextric set. So there you go for having picked the right one, I guess. All right, I'm going to pause this and we'll bring up the next grid of cars. Okay, and here's my late 60s, early 70s NASCAR. And most of these, if not almost all of them, are Carrera. There may be one that's not. I believe that 22 Charger further down when I get to it. I believe that's not. But I got the Fords on the outside lane for the most part, and the most cars on the inside lane. Now here's something interesting. Take a look at that. A Superbird with a 429. I think somebody made an error. 429s were a Ford engine. 426 was the Hemi for Chrysler. As you see, that one has it. That has a 429. This Ford has a 427. That has a 426 Hemi. Now you may ask, why is there a 427 and a 429? 427 was the early big block Ford. And in 1969, they came out with a 429 Boss, which was installed into the Mustangs so that they could homologate it to run in NASCAR, because there had to be so many made for the street so the engine would be legal to run in NASCAR. Now the oddity is that they never, from the factory, ever put the 429 Boss inside a Torino, which was what, or Montego or Cyclone for Mercury, which was the weapon of choice in NASCAR. So there's a little bit of an oddity. But there you got the couple of Chargers here alongside the Torinos. Another Charger. Roadrunner. That's the 1 year in 1969 that Richard Petty drove a Ford. And the story behind that is he wanted a wing car. Chrysler said, sorry, we only make them in a Dodge. You're a Plymouth man. He goes, well, either I get a wing car or I'm going to get a Ford. They thought he was bluffing. He showed up in 1969 with a Torino. Did fairly well with it. Lo and behold, guess what was created? The Superbird. And the only reason the Superbird was created was because if they didn't, Richard Petty wouldn't come back to Plymouth. They wouldn't let him run a Dodge. This is weird, because 2 years later, 3 years later, whichever it was, I think it was 1971 or I guess it was 72 or 73, they stopped running Plymouths altogether in NASCAR and he ran a Dodge. So I don't know why they ever did that. You can never figure out how the internal politics of these car companies work stuff out. But then this is the collection. This is the one I was talking about here, the 22. And yes, this is a Carrera. See, the lone Carrera in the bunch. Or I'm sorry, not Carrera, but the lone Scalextrics in the bunch. The rest of these are Carreras. And just so that anybody knows that may not already be aware, to run a Carrera on a Scalextric track, you do have to change the guide. You can get the replacement guides. They just pop in. But yes, you will have to change it because the guides are so long and deep that they will not roll through, especially the really tight radius corners that you get on a Scalextric track. Like if you try to go through that hairpin, especially on the inside lane, no dice. It's just going to lock it up. So you got to go with a shallower, shorter guide. And that's going to be it for this section. I'm going to put it on pause and bring up the next group of cars. Okay, here's Group 5 is alive. Quick stroll down the grid. Come back. Here's the Greenwood Corvette, BMW, got a Ferrari, got a Decon Monza, a Ford Capri, Ford Escort, Lancia, and then we have another Lancia, Porsche, and a Nissan GTR, a Ford Mustang, Toyota Celica, and another Ford Mustang. These were Group 5 in Europe, and pretty much over here they'd have been IMSA GT or the Trans Am class, about 74 on 75, something like that. I forget when they adopted the style cars in the Trans Am series, but they also ran in Trans Am, they ran in IMSA, and like I said, in Europe they were Group 5. And these things were screamers. They had turbos, the whole 9 yards. These things were animals. Alright, so that's this grid. I'm going to pause it and bring up the next grid. Alright, next up, my Australian cars. Front, Mad Max 1 Interceptor, and then the Road Warrior Battle Scarred version. Next up is the Alan Moffat Brute 33. This was the car he ran the following season. This is the City Ford XB. Next one up is the Colin Bond number 2 that they did the 1-2 finish at Bathurst in. Following season, 78, he ran the Cobra. And then this one here is from, I believe, 1974 season. And this is John Goss. And then back here would be 1978. This is a reverse Cobra of Dick Johnson. Alright, the next grid. Trans Am. Got 70 Mustang, 71 Javelin, 70 Mustang, 70 Camaro, 70 Cuda, 70 Challenger, 70 Cuda, 70 Camaro, 70 Camaro, 70 Challenger, 70 Camaro, 69 Mustang, 71 Javelin, 69 Camaro, 69 Mustang, 68 Mustang, or 68 Camaro, I'm sorry. And we got a 67 Mustang, 68 Camaro, another Camaro, and 2 more Mustangs. These cars from the Sunoco Camaro back are Pioneers, and the others are Skelectrics or SEX, and as far as the CUDAs. Alright, I'm going to put it on pause and I'll bring up the next grid. Alright, the next grid, 1970s Formula One. We have two Tyrrells, Jackie Stewart and Francois Sever. And we have the two Lotus 72s of Fittipaldi and Peterson. We have a customer Lotus run by a Team Gunston out of South Africa, and then this Lucky Strike car, which is also run in South Africa. South African Grand Prix, that is. And then you have the Hesketh 308. You have a version of the M23 McLaren. This is Nelson Piquet. We have two Brabham BT44s, I think. One's from 1974, one's from 1975. Reutemann and Pache. And then we have the six-wheel Tyrrell. This is Ronnie Peterson, so this would be the 1977 season. 1976, I think this is early 76. It still had the high airbox. This is Lello Lombardi in a March. That's a 751, I believe. And then here we have, these are Pala cars. This is the two early Lotus 72s. One is Jochen Rindt. The other is Graham Hill. Then we have an early Ferrari and a BRM. And then we have the, I believe this was a March chassis. That Jackie Stewart ran, might be the 1970 season, perhaps. And Jean-Pierre Jarier in a similar chassis. And that's it for this grid. We'll bring up the next one.